need to fill. And it would be a terrible mistake for higher education to think, oh, we could just raise tuition costs and all because the government will take care of that. That's not going to happen. I suspect this is a one-time thing. And higher education, you asked the perfect question. Higher education has got to look itself in the eye.
And expanded Medicare benefits. That failed after Manchin said it would be too costly, though the law is considerably smaller than their initial ambitions. Biden and Democrats calling the legislation a once-in-a-generation investment in addressing the long-term effects of climate change. Another $64 billion will help 13 million people pay premiums over the next 3 years for privately bought health insurance under the Affordable Care Act. Medicare will gain the power to negotiate its costs for pharmaceuticals initially in 2026 for only 10 prescriptions. Medicare beneficiaries' out-of-pocket prescription costs would be limited to $2,000 annually starting in 2025. In the beginning of next year, would pay no more than $35 a month for insulin. Manchin also told reporters that the Inflation Reduction Act won't immediately temper inflation, telling reporters that the necessary investments needed to bring down prices would take some time. Manchin said the market is anticipating the investments that will be made with the passing of the bill. Utility prices, for instance, will come down as the U.S. becomes more energy dependent. And Manchin told reporters, I think if you're going to wait for the Federal Reserve to raise rates, discourage you from buying anything that's going to take care of our inflation. That's not how you take care of inflation. That's not how you take care of inflation. Ask people to pour large sums of money into putting solar panels on the roof, buying an electric vehicle. Manchin said that will be a 10-year process. It's not going to be overnight, and they have incentives to do that to help them. The measure is paid by new taxes on large companies and stepped up IRS enforcement on wealthy individuals. Folks, low-income households are finally now eligible to receive a fourth stimulus check. These new stimulus payments are worth up to $5,000. Americans in some parts of the country are getting extra cash payments to help offset blistering inflation, with at least 19 states and one city offering financial relief to residents grappling with higher food prices, gas, and rent. And although consumer prices cooled slightly in July, they still rose 8.5% last month from a year ago, near a 4-decade high and more than quadruple the Federal Reserve's target of 2%. Here's what one mayor, governors, and state lawmakers are offering help to taxpayers in the states and cities. Now, Alaska's Senate recently approved a budget that includes sending Alaska stimulus checks to residents. The Senate approved the budget even as the state faces a revenue windfall due to high oil prices. The Alaska Senate approved a state spending package that includes provision to send Alaska stimulus checks to residents. The $5,500 payment includes $4,200 as dividend payment, as well as $1,300 in energy relief checks. According to the Associated Press, sending a dividend payment of $4,200 will cost about $2.8 billion.
Senator, what do you tell the viewer, the taxpayer, who says, you know what, loan forgiveness is not really forgiveness. Loan forgiveness is a transfer. It's effectively a transfer of the cost from one taxpayer to another, oftentimes a taxpayer potentially who could afford it, maybe, but a taxpayer potentially who paid their college bills, in some cases took on 1, 2, and 3 jobs. Their families did this to get them through college. And they look at this and they say, this is just unfair.
No, you're going to hear a lot of that, but I think one of the things you do is you cap the amount, one of the forgiveness, but also of the income bracket where it can be forgiven. And a blanket forgiveness would not work.
I do want to ask you about your book, but I also want to ask you about your career and where you see Washington in this country right now. It seems as divided as ever. There are some people who think that our democracy is in doubt. There are others who think it's as strong as ever. What do you think?
It is not as strong as ever. It's one of the reasons I wrote that book. I wanted to show the arc of when I came in, time of Watergate, seeing leading Republicans, as much as it pained them to do it, to go down to the White House and tell President Nixon he had to leave because of the things he'd done. And now people of the president's party, former president's party, afraid to question him. On top of that, you see people who, wherever they get their information, they believe some things that are totally false, demonstrably false, but they act on that. We saw that in January 6th in the insurrection. The people coming in and saying, well, the Constitution allows this, the Constitution allows that. One, I doubt they've ever read the Constitution, but secondly, it did not allow what they were doing. And the rest of the world looked at us and wondered if our democracy, the oldest existing democracy, was coming unraveled. I write the book more to say, here's the way it was. It was not perfect, but it was a lot better. Here's what we've descended to, and the Senate has a duty to come together, Republicans and Democrats, to go back to...
The manufacturing facility of tritium that's announced today is more than just great news for Tennessee. Yes, it's going to create more than 500 good-paying jobs in Tennessee, but it's going to deliver greater dignity and a little more breathing room to workers and their families, and it's going to have a ripple effect beyond and far beyond the one state. This is great news for workers across the country, for an economy, and frankly, for the planet. When we wrote and passed the bipartisan infrastructure law, we included $7.5 billion for electric vehicle chargers, like the one Jane brought along today. It's a little thing, you can see. But all kidding aside, Secretaries Granholm and Buttigieg have been helping lead this effort from our administration. And later this week, we're going to announce a state-by-state allocation for $5 billion of the funding for these chargers. So states can start making plans to build out what will become a national network of electric vehicle chargers. Tritium's new facility is going to produce up to 30,000 of these chargers every year. They'll use American parts, American iron, American steel, and they'll be installed up and down the highways and corridors in our communities all across the country by union workers from the IBEW and the Electrical Workers Union. So the benefits are going to ripple to thousands of miles in every direction. And these jobs will multiply in steel mills, small parts suppliers, construction sites all over the country in the years to come. And it's going to help ensure that America leads the world in electric vehicles. China has been leading that race up to now. But this is about to change, because America is building convenient, reliable, equitable, national public charging networks. So wherever you live, charging an electric vehicle will be quick and easy. And the foundation will help American automakers set the pace for electric vehicles, which means even more good-paying jobs producing batteries, materials, and parts. That's also going to help save hundreds of billions of gallons of gasoline over time, saving an average driver who chooses an electric vehicle up to $1,000 every year on fuel, making our country more economically competitive, lowering air pollution, and keeping families healthier as we tackle the climate crisis. Here's the key point. Announcements like this don't happen